Hi, this is Bruce Rawles, and I'm talking with Susan Dugan again. And we're, as always, talking about A Course in Miracles. And Susan suggested a really wonderful section in the text, which is in the last section of Chapter 11, God of the Ego. And this is a section entitled The Problem and the Answer. This is section 8. Um, and Susan mentioned that she just recently led a gathering and with this particular topic. So maybe you want to just jump in, Susan, and welcome, by the way.
Okay, thanks. It's great to see you. It's been a couple months, I think. But so yeah, I was really drawn to this section, the problem and the answer. I was prepping for a gathering at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center, and often I'm drawn to something in the text because of or the workbook, but because of something that's kind of happening in my own classroom or. I mean, that's ideally that we should be trying to live, bring this into our lives and what does this mean for me,
Great theory, but how do I apply it?
I mean, it doesn't, this course does nothing if we're not doing that. So It's hard to do that. And also with my teaching and what was going on for me was a lot of complaining to Jesus about, well, I mean, it took the specific and very arrogant form, I'm sorry to report, of really just kind of whining about how I have all of the hours I've, clocked with the course and my tremendous dedication to the course and, how I've put in enough time for the equivalent of several PhDs, that kind of stuff. and yet.
Where's my seniority payoff? That kind of thing?
Yeah. So why am I still, grappling with some of this nonsense that I find myself in, and I think these things come and go so quickly these days. But I think it was around some speaking commitments that I'd gotten myself into, I wanted to do and I'd agreed to, but because I have this, I'm not in any new situation, I'm not comfortable with public speaking, and so anything that I do that's new becomes another terrifying classroom for me to have to see. It seems like I have to start all over again with the process, and so there was that, and there were some things with my, elderly parents, and there were special relationship issues, so it was just
I can kind of relate
mix of things. Yeah. But I was in sort of a very anxious state, let us say, and so really complaining again that why can't I just be free of fear and free of and so I came to this section and it was great because Jesus is really kind of calling us out on exactly what I was doing, in that I was defining all these problems in form and still, I mean, very subtly kind of saying that they shouldn't be there if I had been doing the course right, which it has nothing to do with the form. It's not, it's never talking about healing the dream, or healing the body or healing the situation. And he's talking about, our reaction to it and our interpretation of it and healing the mind that is generating all of these problems and making something out of them. And so this was such a great reminder. And I love also in this that, the humility of being a student of this course really comes from the acknowledgement that we don't know the problem. I mean, that's why we need a teacher. And also that, the whole point of the course, I mean, if we knew that there were no problems and nothing upset us and we knew we weren't bodies, then we really wouldn't need to have this course. We wouldn't need to be here. So, but we're in school, but we don't know that. And it's, even though we've many of us have been practicing the course and studying it, and we are devoted, and we are, I'm sincere when I try to apply this and practice it, but there's a part of me this is all unconscious and that is deeply resistant. I still don't know what I really am, and I'm still deeply fearful of accepting what I am, because in between that, I still have this secret belief in sin, and I still believe that my defense against the sin of separation that I believe really happened, of, you know, that we pulled off this separation from God. My defense against that, the only defense that I still believe is effective, is me, and you know, my personal self. And so the fear of what this might do, of shattering that personal identity, is so great that we really can't, you know, we must have a teacher at all times to help us see the problem right now as it is, and not the way we set it up, as the Course says. So you know, so the humility is always that, you know, forgiveness now that Ken Wapnick talked about so eloquently. And you know, right now, what teacher am I choosing right now? You know, the fact that I'm having all of this anxiety over this, and this, you know, what is that? That means that I've chosen a teacher that is going to, you know, constantly reinforce anxiety, and wants me to strengthen that anxiety. But I am not that. I am not the ego. You know, I am the decision-making mind, and I do have this other teacher available to me, who's speaking to me right very clearly in this section about the fact that I don't really know anything, and that the only way I can learn, until the very top of the ladder, when, you know, all of my mind is completely healed and there's no guilt left, is by asking, and asking, you know, right now, what do I need to know? And, you know, we take the specifics and he is telling us in this section, as he tells us throughout the Course, to take very specifically all of these problems as we see them to him, but not to cling to specific answers. And it's our trying to define the answer within the question that we want, that reinforces our, you know, that will meet me here. That when I'm insisting on that, then I really can't get beyond and see the problem. And so, you know, it's all about, again, that really turning in humility to Jesus, and saying, you know, I really want to learn, because my way isn't working. My way is making me terribly anxious, and you know, I really would like to. I can get through this without anxiety. That's what the Course is promising, and you know, and you know, that would be lovely. And so that's really all I want.
What a concept, huh?
Yeah, I mean, because there's always going to be stuff out there, right? There's always crap out there. Yep. You know, I mean, life is not an easy journey. You know, we didn't make it up. We didn't set it up to be an easy journey. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
You've said a lot of great things there. Just the most recent one just kind of remind me is that, you know, one of the audios of Ken's I've been listening to a lot lately is Lesson 182, and about that, and you know, that if we think that we're happy here, you know, and which kind of ties into a previous comment you just made about the idea that if we think that there's hope in the world, you know, then we're fooling ourselves, and we're just, again, trying to do the dream repair technician hat number on ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it doesn't get us anywhere, and that's what leads to that anxiety that you talk about. That because there's always anxiety, you know, intrinsic in the idea that we're some separate thing, and the anxiety, it comes from, you know, the unconscious ontological guilt of thinking we, like you say, threw God under the bus, and that there's somehow, you know, a crime that I'm sure we go over this a lot, and probably using a lot of the same phrases, but it's so true. Is, you know, we think that you know, there's something that is amiss that we made up, and we keep, you know, trying to, as Einstein would say, you know, solve the problem at the level at which it was made up, and paraphrasing, of course, and it just ain't going to work. And so a huge part of the Course is devoted to, you know, well, really all through it is there's a tremendous amount devoted to just gently reminding us that our way isn't going to work, and that the way that's presented as the real alternative is the only thing that's going to help. And that takes the form of, like you say, forgiving specifics in our lives, and using those specifics as the classroom to say, okay, I can look at whatever, like, you know, Gary Renard's teachers say, whatever's in front of my face on a given day, and at any moment to moment, and see that that's an opportunity to awaken from my self-induced dream, and be happy, and see through each other, and that's where the later section of this section goes into, as we talked about before we started recording briefly, that that seeing in our brother, metaphorically, the way out, because that is the Son of God just as much as we are, and to be totally inclusive, and see that we're all in the same boat does really get us out, and it does show the beauty, not in the form, but in the content and the mind that we all share, that we've just covered over, and it's been there all along. So anyway,
right, exactly, yeah, and I think it's so easy for us to lose track of the fact that we, we think we do know. We've been doing the course of all, and we think, oh, we think we're further along than we are.
Yeah.
And because the truth is, until we're in the real world, until all of the guilt is gone, and we're ego free, we all have egos, and the ego becomes more and more chameleon-like, and more sneaky, and so we have to. We can't always spot it in ourselves that's an understatement. So, what we can pay attention to is how we're feeling. And if we're feeling something other than kindness toward ourselves and others, all others that cross our mind, then something's run amok, So, we've dropped the hand of Jesus without even knowing we made the swap. And so, we have to, we have to go back and say, what, I'm sorry, I forgot again. And really, I'm in school. It's okay. It's not a sin, but it's a mistake. And, I need a refresher course again. I have to, Jesus doesn't, he doesn't flunk anybody. He's just like, okay, you can take as long as you want with this course, but you have to, you have to admit that you don't know and that your way isn't working. And that's not a one-time
No. In fact, what that reminds me of is a couple of days ago, some friends of the family dropped by, and longtime friends of the family, and just for a brief visit. And before they depart, I was chatting with them in the driveway before they pulled away, and so they, we're talking about all what they've been up to, and then they say, well, what have you been doing? I say, well, I've been, studying A Course in Miracles, and the comment says, oh yeah, we did that one year, and
of course, right.
but that sort of sabbatical seniority, mentality of thinking that, well, gee, I've got some kind of, momentum built up. Well, yeah, it is cumulative, but it's not just something that we can do in a short period of time, typically. And to give, and I think that's a reminder to be patient with ourselves and to be persistent, and to just, like you say, whenever you notice the feeling that's anxious or hateful or the least bit divisive or non-inclusive, or that anything that makes differences a big deal, just to say to yourself, oh, okay, I caught myself again. Like you say, ego's technique is very sneaky and tries to come at it from umpteen different angles, but fortunately our inner kindness teacher comes at it from all those same angles with the real alternative, which is
right. And while you were talking, I was just thinking that I think it's counterintuitive that we tend to think, oh, this isn't working because I'm seeing so much more of my own thoughts. I'm seeing, I seem to like have this inner Tourette's going on all the time, where I'm just like really like everything's bothering me. That's the way I feel sometimes.
I like that phrase. That's great. I'm going to use that.
And so it's, really, I feel like that sometimes. It's like I wasn't aware that I was a judgmental person and just so, just so angry. So but when in truth, that's probably a good sign, because we've covered this over, and it was the burying of this that was making it real. And so we have to allow, we have to first see that we're doing this, and the process of this, the practice of this, lifts the veil on that, and right. it says, look how you're hurting yourself here. Look at what's really going on. Look at the hatefulness that really plays out. in relationships, even special love, that we think is so sacrosanct. And
Actually, particularly, but
particularly,
because that's so sneaky. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's very sneaky. And so, all the giving to get that we do, and all of the sacrificing in the name of love that we do, that isn't really very kind. And so, that so I think that, again, we can't even judge learning progress from learning failure. We don't know. And so that's, again, we can't do this by ourselves. We have to come back to our teacher. And he uses the analogy and metaphor in here repeatedly of little children, or at least, young children will ask when they don't know what something is. And, and they'll ask someone that they trust to tell them what it is. And, and so they at least have that sort of built-in humility because they're not familiar with the world around them. And, it can very quickly, they very quickly assume they do know, but there is that sort of initial asking that children do, and so he's kind of entreating us to return to that openness, that sense of wonder about, that where we really admit that we don't know. And at that point, when we are really deeply honest that we don't know, that our way is really just a mess, then we can, because we can't be completely, we think we are familiar with it. So it's not a perfect analogy, but we can see from this looking process that our way isn't working. And that's when we have to, repeatedly ask again and come to him saying, I really don't know. I really don't know what I want. Because in any given situation, even the solutions in form have their own set of problems. And, so we learn, if we've lived long enough, you don't have to be a course student to realize that, that there really are no easy answers or perfect answers to anything here, and that they all do come with their own new set of problems. So, so really trying to solve things in form is a losing battle.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were talking about that deeper, more persistent, more consistent looking, it does seem like, when we sort of like metaphorically are draining the swamp, and as that swamp layer gets lower, we see more alligators and we see more sludge and things that we maybe weren't consciously expecting, but it's not the conscious mind that made all this up. It's really that collective ontological split in that descent from the ladder, so that Ken uses metaphorically, that made all that up. So we need to re-identify with Holy Spirit's help with that voice, that kind awareness that says, yeah, you can look at this, and you can afford to look at this without condemning yourself. Right. And by remembering that it's a dream, number one, and number two, it's your reality is not that dream. And I think that's what is, the Course seems to come at from so many different angles. Is it's sort of this 1-2 punch. It's like, here's the ego's interpretation,
right. So
and it's pretty abysmal. But you have to look at it. You have to look at it, and then if you look at it, both the special love and the special hate, and all the other junk, then what is behind that is the reality that's the loving kindness that is really our true nature, and then that's what's left, and then the swamp disappears.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, should we read a couple?
Yes. Let's do. We already decided that we need to cover most of it. I think.
We tried to eliminate them and didn't. We couldn't.
Yeah, right. All the paragraphs are important. So.
Yeah. So I don't know. You want to start, Bruce? You want to read? I don't know. Well, maybe we better read part of 2 anyway, because it brings in that idea of children. So yeah, maybe paragraph 2.
Okay, sure. The Bible tells you to become as little children. Little children recognize that they do not understand what they perceive, and so they ask what it means. Do not make the mistake of believing that you understand what you perceive, for its meaning is lost to you. Yet the Holy Spirit has saved its meaning for you, and if you will let him interpret it, he will restore to you what you have thrown away. Yet while you think you know its meaning, you will see no need to ask it of him. And there's that ego, propaganda machine that we bought into so thoroughly that we don't even question it. I mean, and even our questions are really statements
Right.
most of the time of ego's propaganda and blathering of, oh yeah, what I made is going to work and it's important and it's a big deal and yada yada yada, blah blah blah.
Right. And short the course even to try to say that it will solve these problems, and it will the Holy Spirit will transform my body, and then will transform the problem in my child, or whatever, all the things that we think are wrong, the world,
Mm-hmm.
the larger world.
Yep.
That we will all evolve, things like that. And this has nothing to do with something that what world, what body,
Mm-hmm.
bodies can't, don't live, they don't die, they don't. It's so we keep it, we very subtly try to bring it back into the world, and what we're doing is we've switched hands.
Right. Right.
We're right back with the ego, making
Yeah.
it real.
Yeah. And it seems like so much of that really pivots around the question of identity and identification. Because if we can do the things that we would normally do, but without the investment identity-wise in thinking that, oh, I'm going to be happy or sad or peaceful or anxious or whatever, depending on the outcome of what seems to be happening in the dream. I think that's where, this section talks about, really reminds us the humility that's required because we don't understand. And then the next paragraph, the last sentence says, yet your willingness to learn of him depends on your willingness to question everything you learned of yourself. For you who learned amiss should not be your own teacher. And
where are you, Bruce? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's the end of the third paragraph.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Which starts out, you do not know the meaning of anything you perceive.
Right.
Not one thought you hold is wholly true, which is, as long as we're taking space-time and our interpretation of it from this little pinhole camera myopic view of the cosmos, even knowing that the cosmos intellectually is a dream, it's just so easy, and we're so practiced at immediately lapsing back into the idea that this is my reality. I'm this specific person with this personality and this body and all these issues and that you were just addressing, and all that stuff is the real deal, the big deal, and yet, if we can just catch ourselves more and more often, which I think is what the Course is asking us to do, and just say, oh yeah, A, it's not true, and B, I don't have to judge myself. I don't have to condemn myself or anyone else, seemingly else, that's also my projection,
Right.
that I seem to be observing having their own ego meltdown or launching their internal nuclear codes, and it doesn't matter. What matters is my response to it, and am I willing to suspend condemnation? Am I willing to say, oh yeah, that is if it's not loving it, nothing happened.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And again, that comes from our willingness to take Jesus's hand, to say, I don't know what is going on here. And I mean, whenever we're, anything that's going, the truth is, in anybody else's ego meltdown, we're not, the Course is not saying we're responsible for other people's ego meltdowns, but we're responsible for our interpretation of it, our reaction to it. And, because Ken always had a way of slicing through that and would say, well, what does it have to do with you again? And so, and that always, that just really stopped you, because it's like, well, it doesn't really, does it? That's my choice, is if I'm making something out of it, then, that's all about the differences that the ego sees, and the, wanting us to be apart, and thinking that we know, and thinking that, that all of this is real. And so, the only correct response, right-minded response, is to someone else's ego meltdown is, this is my own mind in need of healing. This is my own call for love. And certainly seeing our sameness in that, I have an ego too. And I know how painful that is, So, of course it's coming from fear, because we're all fearful here. All of us, all of the children in lesson 182 that are walking around here feeling, lost and alien, and as though they'll never be welcome back in their father's home.
Right.
And there's no way out for all eternity. I mean, that's the thought that we all harbor secretly within. And not only harbor, but hug, it's the guilt we hold close, right, that we've so confused as our only safety. It's like we're banished here, but we have to try to, we have to try to find other bodies to pin this guilt on, to believe that at least we're not going to be punished for it. That's the very least we can hope for, is that God won't hunt us down and punish us individually, and there'll be somebody else that is punished. And so what a meager, loveless thought that is, that we all harbor. So, that we don't have to think about that, but by just saying, what does this have to do with me? Brings us back to wait a minute, there's another teacher here, there's another, it doesn't. I'm a decision-making mind, and there's still love between us. However, whatever seems to be going on with that other person, we really are the same. And it really is my same fear. And I mean, that's where the Course, I think, is so amazing, because its formula is to see your innocence, to see my innocence in my brother. That is really how I do learn my innocence, my own lovability. And that works, because we can't, as long as we're seeing someone as the problem and as, messing me up.
The cause of my grief.
Right, exactly. Then we're going to be in that state of lack. Yeah. I mean, we can't, so we have to, we have to reverse the idea of giving to get, to fill that lack, to, just giving, looking with Jesus, giving the gift of seeing with Jesus, how Jesus sees this person, how Jesus sees me. And that's how we learn how Jesus sees me, is by seeing how, seeing that nothing that this person has done has anything can change the love we share. I mean, it just can't. It's impossible. And that doesn't mean you don't deal with the form if you have to on some level, but it won't have any sense of condemnation or inequality involved.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So can I read just a couple more sentences from that
Please do.
paragraph, because it goes on. So because I love this. So you had read, you do not know the meaning of anything you perceive. Not one thought you hold is wholly true. And then he goes on, the recognition of this is your firm beginning. You are not misguided. You've accepted no guide at all. Instruction and perception is your great need, for you understand nothing. So, I mean, that is, that this is our firm beginning. When you, with the ego, just goes, ouch, what is he saying there? And, that's very, very fearful to us, because, I mean, we're very unwilling to say we don't know. And then to say that that's our firm beginning, that's really a kind of put down to the ego, isn't it? Because we think we do know. We think we can just rush through this course and just click our heels together and say, I am not a body, I am free, and ascend, and that's not the case, because again, it's all, this guilt is unconscious, and you have to have some respect for that process, and I think he's really calling us out here and saying, I mean, in a kind way, not judgmental. He knows it's coming from fear, but I mean, this isn't going to work if you're not willing to at least look within yourself and look at the pain that this is causing you, the way that you're doing things.
Right.
So. Right.
It kind of reminds me of my friend in the park in the driveway, saying that they'd done the course that year, and the end of the workbook it says, yeah, this course is a beginning, and that reminder that it does take consistent and persistent and steady and you know and take a pin to it and realize, oh, it's an inflatable crocodile, and it pops when you poke it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's all just smoke and mirrors. So
Yeah, it's a facade. It's a very convincing hologram, but it's a hologram. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Do you want to read parts of paragraph 6 or?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's short enough. Let's just read it. Okay, it says, the Holy Spirit will give you only what is yours and will take nothing in return. What a deal. Now, talk about a bargain, huh?
Amen, right?
Really? For what is yours is everything, and you share it with God. Boy, that's a win-win scenario if I ever heard one.
Okay.
That is its reality. Would the Holy Spirit, who wills only to restore, be capable of misinterpreting the question you must ask to learn his answer?
Well, we think that, don't we?
Yeah. Because like you say in the previous section, we think that there's some sacrifice demanded of us because we're still listening to the ego in some fashion.
And I catch myself trying to word things, well, maybe I should ask ask it differently, and it's pretty silly. It really.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
And it's always asking for some specific. Huh?
Right.
You have heard the answer, but you have misunderstood the question. You believe that to ask for guidance of the Holy Spirit is to ask for deprivation. And I think it's because we're so convinced that deprivation has to do with the level of form.
Right.
Because we think that this world is real, because we're so entrenched in the role and so well rehearsed and so identified with it, that we think that this cartoon character that's sitting in front of a computer that has a name and a phone number and yada yada is, I've pretty much bought into the idea that that's my identity, but that's laughable. And when we all do it, and we're all in that same boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We believe that the idea again of sacrifice is so interwoven into our religions and our culture and our everything that we've made in the world, that and certainly religions do require deprivation. I mean, we need to
glorified. It's glorified. It's
glorified.
Like the Mother Teresa. Oh, she was like, suffering is good. And yet,
and the least among them is all about form and poverty and and renouncing the world and I mean there's not, and again there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not good or better than living in the world. I mean the truth is there's nothing that we have to divest ourselves from or invest ourselves from to find peace. It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
And this is all happening in the mind, and the very fact that we are making up an idea that we need to purify ourselves is all that is doing, is strengthening the idea of guilt. I'm not okay. I have to, I must get rid of something about myself to make myself more lovable. I mean, there's a deep unworthiness at the heart of that idea, and its opposite, which is if I accumulate enough stuff and success and fame and relationships, then maybe I'll be okay. Maybe I'll be lovable. And neither one of them work. I mean, they really, I mean, some religious paths do require you to remove yourself from the world and monastic traditions and so forth, and meditation, and you may, I think Mother Teresa was very much kind to all and seeing
right.
your interests, and so maybe that way will work, if the shared interests are at the heart of it, but the course is a much more manageable practical approach in the sense that it really doesn't make those distinctions, and is why it doesn't call itself the only path, but it does call itself an accelerated path, because it cuts right through the ego's nonsense and illusions, and all of the hierarchy of illusions that the ego has made, which can take a lot of lifetimes. I mean, this is going to take us a lot of lifetimes, but even a lot more lifetimes to try to maneuver our way if we're still trying to make that real. So. Anyway, so where did we? I'm sorry, I was rambling there.
That was good rambling.
Yeah.
Well, it sense to me.
We finished paragraph 6.
I
You've
think,
heard the answer, but
yeah. You believe that to ask for guidance of the Holy Spirit is to ask for
right,
declaration. Yeah,
right.
I think so.
Yeah, we've misunderstood the question. Okay, yep. Do you want to read the next one, or little child of God?
Sure. Little child of God, you do not understand your Father. You believe in a world that takes because you believe that you can get by taking. And by that perception, you have lost sight of the real world. You are afraid of the world as you see it, but the real world is still yours for the asking. Do not deny it to yourself, for it can only free you. Nothing of God will enslave his Son, whom he created free and whose freedom is protected by his being. Blessed are you who are willing to ask the truth of God without fear, for only thus can you learn that his answer is the release from fear.
Right.
So, yeah, we're asking for our real self and saying that this fake one that we made up, the fear, aka fear, is we're willing to question the validity of that approach. And
right, and willing to look at all of our of our compulsion to give to get, kind of with the dynamics that are going on in our special relationships, in which we're always bargaining for love,
right.
Based on the idea that we don't have, we're not lovable again. And so, but he's saying here that we already have that, but that's not the way we see it. We do believe in a world that takes, and so that's why, again, why we need to ask, why we need a teacher, to see, because we really can't within the thought system see outside it, and only with his help, as long as we do believe in a world that takes, and certainly our eyes and ears and senses give us tremendous daily, moment to moment feedback, that there is a world that takes constantly and does horrible things to people. Right. So we need to use that as our classroom, and with a teacher that can really help us translate what's going on.
I think that's another reason why the Course emphasizes that having and being are the same.
Right.
And because it's basically, it's not talking about the level of form, it's always talking about the mind. And so if we can identify with the reality of what we are as mental being, right, then we have everything because we are everything. Exactly. And there's no difference there. But it's only when we dive into the swamp of duality that we appear to be separate, and it's really a convincing illusion, but it's all just made up. It's just all made up. And
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we probably should move on, because we're let's see. I was thinking,
how about 11?
Yeah, and before, I was just going to read a little bit of 10 that goes.
Oh, okay.
As you become willing to accept this help by asking for it, you will give it because you want it.
Yes.
So, yeah, nothing will be beyond your healing power, because nothing will be denied your simple request. So we will be doing this in with everyone. We will begin to, and we will be demonstrating to all minds that they too have this teacher available. There is another way to look at it that's all shared interests. We don't have to say anything or teach anything. We just by accepting that and trying to live that ourselves, we are giving that alternative, demonstrating that alternative to everyone, that we're in contact with. So what problems will not disappear in the presence of God's answer? Ask then to learn of the reality of your brother, because this is what you will perceive in him, and you will see your beauty reflected in his. I'm just going to kind of go on a little bit, because he elaborates on that. Do not accept your brother's variable perception of himself, for his split mind is yours. Right. And you will not accept your healing without his. For you share the real world as you share heaven, and his healing is yours. Your brother's healing is yours. To love yourself is to heal yourself, and you cannot perceive part of you as sick and achieve your goal. Brother, we heal together as we live together and love together. Be not deceived in God's Son, for he is one with himself and one with his Father. Love him who is beloved of his Father, and you will learn the Father's love for you. So, it really is, it all comes back again to the context of our classrooms, our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what tells us, because we don't become anxious in a vacuum. We become anxious over blank, over something which usually has a person, or persons at even if it's a situation, there's other bodies.
Right. There's a specific involved in all of ego's strategies to
someone or something we're pointing a finger at as the cause, right?
Mm-hmm.
And saying, I can't be happy because of this, and because of you and what you did, or what is happening here, or how you're behaving, or on and on. But the point is, that his split mind is yours, is mine. And that's, so it's always about the healing of my own mind. That's my curriculum, is seeing that this is not, I may not really believe that, but questioning it, raising to doubt what's really happening. It's really not about that. My first reaction will be to point a finger again, because we shouldn't feel bad about that. That's what we programmed ourselves to do. But to stop ourselves in the middle of our anxiety attacks and say, you know what, I need help looking at this, because it really feels like it's because of this, and I can't see a way out, and that's when we become open to the answer, but it takes that humility of I can't solve this. I can't fix this. It doesn't work, and I don't like how I feel,
Right.
So, but that's a beautiful, whether we heal together as we live together and love together. That's really kind of the Course's formula.
Yeah. We're healing the separation, one seemingly separate relationship at a time, but it's again, it's holographic. So if we realize that someone else is really my projection, and we're all doing the same thing, then that propagates beyond where we can imagine to include the whole sonship, as the Course would refer to it. Yeah.
Right. And we gain those moments, until we're at the top of the ladder. We will have more and more moments then of the experience that we really are the same. That compassion for that little child in lesson 182 will just sort of bubble up at times, because we'll see that someone else's call truly as our own, and that is such a gift, and then to see that we're all still welcome home. Nothing has changed our Father's love for us. Nothing could, which we first see in the form of nothing could change my love for the person standing in front of me. And nothing has, despite their behavior, nothing has really changed their love for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That unconditional quality of the Course is because the conditions imply that there's specifics that could somehow limit perfect oneness. Huh?
It's real. The separation is real, and where are we in trouble?
Mm-hmm.
And should we read a couple of the last paragraphs on the next page?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think they're beautiful metaphors, and they might just be a great closing. So
yes, please.
You want to read the 13, and I'll read 14.
I was just going to suggest that. Children perceive frightening ghosts and monsters and dragons, and they are terrified. Yet if they ask someone they trust for the meaning of what they perceive, and are willing to let their own interpretations go in favor of reality, their fear goes with them. When a child is helped to translate his, quote, ghost, unquote, into a curtain, his, quote, monster, unquote, into a shadow, and his, quote, dragon, unquote, into a dream, he is no longer afraid and laughs happily at his own fear.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Mm-hmm.
You, my child, are afraid of your brothers and of your father and of yourself, but you are merely deceived in them. Ask what they are of the teacher of reality, and hearing his answer, You too will laugh at your fears and replace them with peace. For fear lies not in reality, but in the minds of children who do not understand reality. It is only their lack of understanding that frightens them, and when they learn to perceive truly, they are not afraid. And because of this, they will ask for truth again when they are frightened. It is not the reality of your brothers or your father or yourself that frightens you. You do not know what they are, and so you do not perceive them, and so you perceive them as ghosts and monsters and dragons. Ask what their reality is from the one who knows it, and he will tell you what they are. For you do not understand them, and because you are deceived by what you see, you need reality to dispel your fears.
Just got to take the pin out and poke
Yeah.
the inflatable crocodiles, and with Holy
Ask,
Spirit's
ask,
help.
ask, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I do not know.
Right.
So I need to ask. I think, yeah, it's a really great section. I would recommend anybody listening to go back and read it because it's just so powerful. It's one we should probably, I should probably reread, once a week. And so.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for sharing this hour. And yeah, a lot of great stuff. We've been reading the last section in chapter 11, which is the problem and the answer in the text of A Course in Miracles. This is Bruce Rawles and Susan Dugan, and you can reach Susan through her website, fourwaysandforgiveness.com, and I've got a website about A Course in Miracles called acimblog.com, and we look forward to connecting with you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.